Can anybody hear me? I don't know if anyone's listening. Maybe I'm just talking to myself, sending words into the void. But if you're out there, if anyone's still alive, my name is... Well, that doesn't matter now. What matters is that I'm here. I'm alive. 3 days ago, I woke up face down in the dust. My throat felt like sandpaper, my head pounding with each heartbeat. The sun beat down mercilessly, burning through the thin fabric of my shirt. When I finally managed to stand on shaky legs, what I saw, I still can't process it properly. As far as the eye could see, nothing but wasteland. Cracked earth stretched to the horizon like shattered glass. Skeletal remains of buildings stood like monuments to a civilization that no longer exists. The husks of cars frozen in their final moments, windows blown out, metal twisted and warped from intense heat. I don't remember how I got here. I don't remember. There was something, a flash maybe, screaming sirens, air raid warnings. It's all fragments. My memories feel like photographs, partially burned, edges curling into ash, faces blurred beyond recognition. The first day was the hardest. No water, no shelter, just the relentless sun and growing desperation. I wandered through the ruins of what might have been a small town once. Houses with their roofs caved in, streets buckled and split open, lampposts bent over like weeping mourners. Everything covered in a fine layer of gray-white ash that stirred with every step, coating my lungs, my eyes, my hope. By nightfall, I found an abandoned convenience store. Half of it had collapsed, but the storage room was intact. I barricaded myself inside with shaking hands, drinking stale water from plastic bottles I found beneath fallen shelves. Outside, the darkness brought sounds I couldn't identify, scraping noises, distant howls that didn't sound like any animal I recognized. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The second day, I gathered what supplies I could carry: water, some preserved food, a hunting knife I found behind the counter, a flashlight with fading batteries. Set out walking again, following what used to be a highway. The asphalt had bubbled and warped in places, like it had briefly melted before re-solidifying. Cars littered the road, some burned out, others eerily intact but empty. I searched each one, hoping for, I don't know what, signs of life, answers, found nothing but silence. That's when I noticed it, a metal hatch, partially hidden by debris, nestled in the corner of what used to be a gas station. It took hours to clear away the rubble. My hands are still raw from it. The hatch led to this bunker, hidden beneath the ground. The door was heavy, designed to withstand, well, whatever happened up there. Military grade. Makes me wonder who built it, and why here of all places. Inside, it was like stepping into a time capsule. Emergency lights running on a generator that kicked on when I entered. Shelves stocked with supplies, water, canned food, medical kits, and this radio equipment, surprisingly sophisticated. There's a ham radio, broadcasting equipment, even a system for scanning frequencies that I've had running non-stop since I found it. I've been broadcasting on all frequencies, listening for a response. Nothing but static so far, but I'll keep trying. I have to believe someone else is out there, that I'm not the last person alive in this, whatever this is. The bunker has maps on the walls, old ones. They show the surrounding area, towns, cities, military installations. I've been studying them, trying to get my bearings. There's a marker on one of them, a circle drawn in red around a city about 40 miles east of here. Something called Project Threshold, written beside it in hurried handwriting. It seems important. Maybe that's where I'll find answers. I've seen things outside when I venture out for reconnaissance, things that don't make sense. The sky sometimes turns a color that shouldn't exist. Not purple, not green, but something in between, something wrong. Yesterday, I watched a flock of birds in the distance, flying in perfect synchronization. Too perfect, like they were a single organism with many parts. They changed direction all at once, not a single one out of place, then suddenly dropped from the sky as one. I didn't go to investigate, and last night, I swear I heard something moving outside the bunker door, something big, dragging itself across the ground. A scraping sound like metal on concrete, punctuated by what sounded like breathing, but distorted, like it was coming through water. I sat with my back against the door, knife in hand, until dawn. It never tried to get in, just circled, listening, waiting. Tomorrow, I'm heading east, toward that city marked on the map. It's visible from here, or what's left of it. A jagged skyline on the horizon like broken teeth against the red-tinged sky. Maybe I'll find answers there. Maybe I'll find people. If you can hear this, if you're out there struggling to survive like me, please respond. This is hell. I need a name, don't I? Something for you to call me. My actual name feels distant, like it belonged to someone else. Someone who died when the world did. Let's call me Walker. Seems fitting, given all the ground I've covered. This is Walker, broadcasting from somewhere in the Wasteland. I'll be back tomorrow. Same frequency, same time. If you're out there, if you're listening, you're not alone. Stay alive. That's all any of us can do now. Stay alive and keep moving forward. Walker here. Day 7 in this ruined world. If you're just tuning in, welcome to the end of everything we knew. I'm broadcasting from a different location today. Found a small radio transmitter in what used to be a police station. It's not as powerful as my bunker setup, but it'll have to do for now. I'm not sure when I'll make it back there. The journey east took longer than expected. The terrain has changed in ways that defy explanation. There are sections of road that simply end. Not destroyed, not covered by debris, just end, like someone took scissors to the fabric of reality and snipped pieces out. I had to navigate around these gaps, these places where the world feels thin, somehow. The air shimmers above them, and if you look too long, you start to see shapes moving in the distortion. Nothing distinct, just movement where there should be none. I reached the city yesterday at dusk. Not much left of it. Buildings like broken teeth against the sky, as I suspected from a distance. Streets buckled and cracked, some split open into chasms so deep I couldn't see the bottom. The silence was the worst part. Cities should never be this quiet. No birds, no insects, no distant sound of traffic or human voices. Just the wind whistling through hollow structures and my own footsteps echoing off crumbling walls. I spent the night in an abandoned apartment building. 6th floor, good vantage point, easily defendable stairwell. Sleep came in fits and starts, interrupted by strange noises from the floors above me. Scratching sounds, whispering that wasn't quite language. I kept my knife close and my flashlight closer. This morning I continued exploring. Found a grocery store, already picked clean, of course. A hospital with its doors chained shut from the outside. I didn't try to get in. Some warnings you just heed instinctively. And then I found the library. 5 stories of knowledge, surprisingly intact compared to the surrounding buildings. Something drew me there. Maybe the hope that among all those books, I might find an explanation for all of this. That's where I found her. The first living person I've seen since I woke up out here. She called herself the archivist. Wouldn't give me a real name. She's been holed up in that library since what she calls the event. That's what she calls it. The event. Like it's something neat and contained, like a dinner party or gallery opening. Not the end of the world as we knew it. She's been collecting stories, you see, piecing together what happened from different accounts. Different survivors she's met, interviewed, documented. She has hundreds of tapes, each labeled with a date and a name. Some dating back to just after the event, others more recent. Here's what I learned from our conversation, which lasted well into the night. It wasn't sudden, not completely. There were warnings that most people ignored or rationalized away. Strange weather patterns, rainstorms that left behind prismatic puddles that wouldn't evaporate, electrical disturbances that caused blackouts and made compasses spin wildly, animals behaving erratically, Mass migrations, species appearing in regions they'd never inhabited before. Government denials, of course. Official statements claiming everything was normal, routine exercises, nothing to worry about. Then communications went dark. One by one, cities fell silent. No phone service, no internet, no television broadcasts. Isolated incidents at first, then spreading like a contagion across the map. The archivist has a theory about what happened. She believes it wasn't nuclear, not exactly. Something worse. Something that fundamentally altered the nature of reality itself. Something that thinned the boundaries between our world and somewhere else. She gave me a leather-bound journal from a locked drawer in her desk. The leather was worn, the pages yellowed and dog-eared. Previous owner was a scientist, apparently, working on something called Project Threshold, the same name marked on my bunker map. The entries start normal enough. Clinical descriptions of experiments, references to quantum tunneling and dimensional permeability, technical jargon that means little to me. But as the journal progresses, the tone changes. The handwriting becomes increasingly erratic, ink blots where the pen pressed too hard into the paper. The entries become increasingly paranoid, increasingly strange. References to bleeding realities and dimensional collapse. Descriptions of visual anomalies appearing in the test chamber. Reports of researchers experiencing temporal dissonance and memory inconsistencies. The final entry just says, "They're coming through." Underlined 3 times, the pen tearing through the paper in places. The archivist let me copy some pages, but wouldn't part with the original. She wouldn't come with me when I asked. Said her place was with the records, with preserving what we were, what happened to us, in case we need to start over. Before I left, she told me about a military installation to the north, not marked on any civilian maps, but she had coordinates scribbled in the margins of a government document she'd salvaged. Said if I wanted answers, real answers, I'd find them there. Also mentioned other survivors heading that way. A group called the Remnant. Said they'd been gathering people, resources, trying to establish some kind of safe haven. She warned me to be careful who I trust. Not everyone who survived the event is still themselves. Some came back wrong, changed. I'm setting out tomorrow at first light, heading north toward these coordinates. If the archivist is right, if there are more survivors gathering there, maybe there's hope for something more than just day-to-day survival. Maybe there's a chance to understand what happened, even to fix it somehow. The battery on this transmitter is running low. I need to conserve what power remains. If you're listening and you're part of this remnant, I'm coming to find you. If you know anything about Project Threshold or what caused the event, I need to hear it. And if you're just another survivor like me, trying to make sense of this broken world, you're not alone. This is Walker, signing off for now. I'll try to broadcast again when I reach the remnant, if they exist, if they'll have me. Stay tuned, stay vigilant, stay alive. Walker Broadcasting. It's been... hell, I've lost track. 15 days since my first transmission, I think. I've made it back to the bunker, back to this radio setup. My voice sounds strange to my own ears after so much silence. After what I've seen, I found them, the remnant, or what's left of them. The journey north was difficult. The landscape has continued to deteriorate. There are areas where the laws of physics seem optional at best. Places where rain falls upward, where shadows fall in the wrong direction, where sound behaves like a solid object. I learned to navigate around these anomalies, to spot the warning signs, air that shimmers like heat waves, plants growing in impossible configurations, that feeling of being watched from every direction at once. 3 days into my journey, I encountered my first wrong one, as the archivist had called them. From a distance, he looked like any other survivor, ragged clothes, haunted expression, cautious movements. I approached openly, hands visible, calling out a greeting. It wasn't until he turned to face me fully that I realized something was off. His movements were fluid, but somehow wrong, like watching a puppet being manipulated by invisible strings. His eyes tracked me, but there was a delay between my movements and his reaction, as if he was seeing me seconds after I'd moved. When he spoke, his voice came from slightly to the left of where he actually stood. He asked if I was real, if I was from here. I backed away slowly, hand on my knife. He followed, movements becoming increasingly erratic, jerky, like frames missing from film. I ran. He pursued, gaining on me with loping strides that covered too much ground. I lost him eventually by crossing one of those shimmering areas I mentioned. He wouldn't follow me through it. Stood at the edge, watching with those vacant eyes. Then simply turned and walked away, as if he'd forgotten I existed. I encountered more of them as I got closer to the coordinates the archivist had given me. Always alone, always wrong in ways that are difficult to articulate. Some spoke in voices that echoed their words before they said them. Some cast multiple shadows that moved independently of their bodies. One woman I saw from a distance appeared to be having an animated conversation with someone invisible, her hands grabbing at the air, her face contorting with emotion. When she noticed me watching, she smiled with too many teeth and began walking backwards toward me without turning around. I didn't stay to see what would happen if she reached me. The military installation turned out to be a repurposed shopping mall. Strategic location, I suppose, easily defensible, multiple entrances and exits, large open spaces inside, plenty of resources if you count the various stores. But it wasn't the military who occupied it now. It was the remnant. They were holed up inside, having transformed the space into a functional compound. Barricades at every entrance, guards with makeshift weapons, baseball bats wrapped in barbed wire, hunting rifles, one woman with what looked like a flamethrower cobbled together from hardware store parts, spotlights scavenging power from a generator system, watchtowers constructed from display shelves and mannequin platforms. They didn't welcome me with open arms, as you might imagine. 2 guards intercepted me before I even reached the outer perimeter, appearing silently from behind abandoned cars, weapons trained on me with practiced efficiency. They escorted me inside with my hands bound behind my back through a labyrinth of security checkpoints, each staffed by people with the same haunted, vigilant expressions. 23 survivors in all, I later learned. They've been together since the beginning, since the event. Some related by blood or previous connection, others united by circumstance and the desperate will to survive. Their leader, a former Army sergeant named Carver, didn't trust me at first. Can't blame him. Trust is a luxury these days, and strangers are as likely to be threats as allies. He kept me in what used to be a storage room for the better part of a day, bringing me water but no food, asking questions designed to trap me in inconsistencies. He told me they've seen others like me, the ones who don't remember. He seemed to be trying to determine if I was one of those wrong ones I'd encountered on my journey. Eventually, I convinced him I was just what I appeared to be, a survivor searching for answers, for others, for some purpose in this broken world. After I showed him the copied pages from the scientist's journal, something changed in his demeanor, a recognition, perhaps, or confirmation of something he already suspected. He took me from my makeshift cell to their command center, sporting goods store converted into an operations room. Maps covered the walls, routes marked in different colors, areas crossed out in red, others circled in green, notes written in margins, photos pinned with string connecting them in patterns that made sense only to those who created them. They've been tracking them, the anomalies, the places they appear most frequently. A young woman named Maya explained that the things they're tracking are entities that came through from the other side. She was at the military installation when it happened. The real installation, not this repurposed mall. One of the few who escaped. She confirmed what the journal hinted at: experiments with dimensional barriers, tearing holes in reality to access somewhere else. Power, resources, technology beyond our understanding, but they tore too deep, reached too far. We didn't find them, she told me. They found us, and now they're coming through. Slowly at first, but faster now, as the barriers continue to weaken. Some can only partially manifest. Those are the anomalies you've encountered, the distortions in reality, but others can come through completely. Over the next few days, I became integrated into their community. They assigned me a sleeping area, rations, responsibilities. I help with perimeter checks, resource inventory, maintenance tasks. Began to learn their stories, their lives before the event. They're a diverse group, former military like Carver, civilian scientists like Maya, ordinary people who happen to be in the right place at the wrong time. Carver's been organizing reconnaissance missions, mapping what's left of our world, looking for safe zones, resources, other survivors, but most importantly, they're looking for a way to close what they opened, to stop the incursion before it's too late, if it isn't already. During my time with the Remnant, I learned more about the wrong ones I'd encountered. They're not invaders, not exactly. They're people who were caught in the event horizon of a breach when it opened. People who were partially elsewhere when reality tore. They came back changed, their consciousness fragmented between dimensions. Not dangerous in the conventional sense, but unpredictable, broken in ways that can't be fixed. The real threat, the Remnant believes, are the entities that come through fully formed breaches. Creatures from the other side. They call them threshold entities. Things that exist in the spaces between dimensions, drawn to the tiers in our reality like predators to blood in water. I've seen one now, just once from a distance during a reconnaissance mission with Carver and two others. We were mapping a new area about 5 miles from the mall when the air began to fold is the only way I can describe it. Like reality itself was being creased and bent. From the distortion emerged something that my mind still struggles to process. It had a shape, yes, but not a consistent one. Parts of it seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. It moved both fluidly and jerkily, somehow both at once. Colors that don't exist in our spectrum rippled across its surface, if surface is even the right word. Carver signaled for absolute stillness. We froze, barely breathing, as the thing drifted across our field of vision, seeming to taste the air, to sense the space around it. It never fully turned in our direction. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, it moved on, the air folding closed behind it. That, Carver told me later, when we were safely back behind the mall's barricades, is what we're fighting, what we're trying to stop. There's a research facility about 100 miles west of here, another site connected to Project Threshold, according to Maya. She believes it contains technology that could reverse what happened, seal the breaches, but it's in what they call a high incursion zone, an area with frequent entity activity, numerous reality distortions, highly dangerous to traverse. We leave tomorrow at dawn. Carver, Maya, myself, and 3 others from the Remnant's core team. A woman named Emilia, who used to be some kind of special forces, a man called Rodriguez, who worked security at the original Threshold facility, and Davis, a former paramedic whose medical skills might prove invaluable. The rest stay behind to maintain this sanctuary, this foothold of humanity in a world that's becoming less human by the day. This transmission might be my last for some time. We don't know what we'll encounter out there, how long the journey will take, if we'll make it back at all. But for the first time since I woke up in the dust, I feel a sense of purpose. These people, this mission, it matters. It might be our only chance to reclaim our world. If you're out there listening, pray for us, or whatever passes for prayer these days. Hope, maybe. Just hope that we find what we're looking for, that it works the way Maya believes it will. This is Walker. I'll broadcast again when we return. Until then, stay alive, stay human. That's all that matters now. Is this working? I don't have much time. Battery's dying on this portable radio I salvaged. If anyone's receiving this transmission, this is Walker. It's been, 12 days since my last broadcast. Time feels slippery out here. We're 3 days into what the Remnant calls a high incursion zone, heading toward the research facility. Things have gone wrong. Lost Rodriguez yesterday. We were making camp in the shell of an old gas station. Seemed secure enough. Concrete walls still standing, good visibility in all directions. He was on first watch. I was supposed to relieve him at midnight. I heard him call out, not in fear, just surprise. By the time I got to him, something took him. Moved too fast to see clearly. Just shadows and teeth and eyes and impossible configurations. Then he was gone. Not dead. Taken. Pulled through a tear in reality that sealed itself behind them. Carver wanted to go after him. Maya talked him down. Said there was nowhere to go after him. No way to follow. Said we had to focus on the mission, that Rodriguez knew the risks. Doesn't make it easier. I keep seeing his face, that last expression of surprise rather than fear. Like he recognized whatever took him. We reached the research facility this morning after navigating a landscape that defies description. Areas where gravity fluctuates unpredictably. Sections where time itself seems to run at different speeds. Davis walked through one such patch and emerged with 3 days' growth of beard. Rain that falls as crystalline structures that shatter on impact. A forest where the trees have grown into perfect geometric shapes, their leaves whispering in voices almost, but not quite human. The facility itself was a fortress once, government-built, military-protected. Now it's a ruin, like everything else. Concrete walls cracked and listing, security systems dead, parts of the complex simply missing, like bites taken out of reality. But and this is the crucial part, sections of it are still operational. Emergency generators still running on some subterranean fuel source, lights flickering in underground levels, systems humming with persistent power. Maya knew exactly where to go. She'd been here before, she revealed, not just at the main threshold site, but here too. She'd worked on the project as a junior researcher, been transferred just weeks before the event, lower levels, restricted access, place called Threshold Chamber. That's where it happened, where they first broke through. We found records, video logs, computer systems still running on emergency power, protected in hardened server rooms designed to survive nuclear attack. I watched scientists tear apart the fabric of our reality, caught glimpses of what waited on the other side. Not empty space, not another Earth, something wrong. Geometries that hurt to look at. Entities that shouldn't exist. The logs documented the project's progression. Initial success opening microscopic tears between dimensions, gradually expanding the apertures, stabilizing the breaches, sending probes through, then receiving bizarre data that the systems couldn't properly interpret, then sending organic matter, plants first, then small animals. Some came back changed, some didn't come back at all. Some came back wrong. But they kept going. Of course they did. The potential rewards outweighed the risks, they believed. New energy sources, new technologies, new understanding of the fundamental nature of reality itself. The holy grail of scientific advancement. The final log entry was from the day of the event. They had opened the largest breach yet, stable enough to potentially send a human subject through. That's when everything went wrong. The breach expanded unexpectedly, uncontrollably. Alarms blaring in the background of the video. Researchers shouting commands, trying to contain the situation. Then the camera feed distorts, fills with static and strange colors. When it clears momentarily, there's something in the chamber that wasn't there before. something moving in ways that make my eyes hurt to remember. Then the feed cuts out entirely, and they've been coming through ever since, slowly at first, then faster as the barriers weakened. The event wasn't an ending, it was a beginning, an invasion. But Maya found what we came for, plans for a device, a resonance inverter designed as a fail-safe, theoretical way to close the breaches by generating a counter-frequency to the dimensional tiers, essentially stitching reality back together. But they never built it, never had time before everything went to hell. We gathered everything we could, schematics, components that could be salvaged from the facility's labs, technical data stored on hardened drives. Started back toward the mall, toward the Remnant's base. That's when they found us. Not human, not anything from our world. Moving like oil through water, bending light around them. We didn't hear them coming. Sound doesn't work right around them. One moment we were making good progress through the facility's outer complex. The next we were surrounded. Carver and Amelia held them off, while Maya, Davis, and I escaped with the plans. Improvised explosives, the last of our ammunition. Fighting a delaying action they knew they couldn't win. I heard the gunfire stop after 10 minutes. The explosions a few minutes after that. They didn't make it. We've been moving constantly since then, staying ahead of pursuit. Maya says we have everything we need to build the device. Says the Remnant has the technical expertise, the tools, the materials, but we need to get back first, and they're hunting us now. They know what we're planning. Davis is injured. Something caught him as we were escaping, a glancing blow from an appendage that seemed to phase in and out of reality. The wound doesn't bleed, doesn't look like any injury I've ever seen. The flesh around it appears translucent, like you can see through to another place on the other side. He's getting weaker, having trouble staying conscious for long periods. We take turns carrying him when he can't walk. We're holed up in an old storm drain now, narrow enough that they'd have to come at us one at a time if they find us. Maya thinks they hunt primarily by sensing disturbances in reality. Living things from our dimension register as anomalies to them, just as they appear as anomalies to us. We're using the reality distortions to our advantage now, moving through areas where the barriers are already weak, using the background noise of those distortions to mask our own presence. If we don't make it back, if you find this recording, the plans are hidden in a red toolbox at the Morrison Creek Bridge. Coordinates 37.4, Nitahan 22.7. Find them. Build it. It's our only chance to close the breaches permanently, to stop what's happening to our world. They're coming, I can feel it. That pressure in my ears, like being underwater. The air beginning to shimmer at the edges of my vision. We have to move, now. This is Walker, possibly signing off for the last time. If anyone's out there, don't give up. There's still a chance to save what's left. This is Walker broadcasting on all frequencies. Day 38 since my first transmission. If you can hear me, if you're still out there, this is important. This might be the most important transmission you'll ever hear. We made it back, against all odds, through a landscape that becomes less recognizable, less real with each passing day. Maya, Davis, and I returned to the Remnant's base 3 days ago, barely. Lost Davis on the final approach. His wound, that strange translucent injury I mentioned in my last transmission, had spread, consumed him from the inside out. In his final moments, he seemed to exist in two places at once. His body here, but his mind, his essence, elsewhere. He looked at something none of us could see, smiled in recognition, and then simply faded away. Not died, faded, becoming transparent until there was nothing left. But Maya and I made it back with the plans. The Remnant has been working day and night to build the resonance inverter. Engineers, technicians, even those with no scientific background contributing however they can. It's almost complete now. A device about the size of a small refrigerator, humming with power drawn from the mall's emergency generators, components salvaged from the hundreds of electronic devices left behind when the world ended. I've learned so much in these past weeks, about myself, about what happened, about what's still happening. The journal I found, the scientists' records, they were mine. I know that now with absolute certainty. The handwriting, the thought patterns, the way the sentences fragment under stress. It was me. I was part of Project Threshold, one of the ones who broke the world. Maya confirmed it when I finally confronted her with my suspicions. She recognized me the moment I walked into the Remnant's base, she admitted. Knew exactly who I was. Dr. Alan Walker, lead theoretical physicist on the Threshold project. The man whose equations made it all possible. The man who opened the door. My memories were either lost in the event or deliberately removed. I'm still not sure which. Maya thinks it was a combination. Trauma from what I witnessed, coupled with the reality warping effects of the breach itself. But pieces have been coming back. Fragments of memory surfacing like debris after a flood. Enough to know that I have a responsibility to fix what I helped break. I remember the excitement of discovery, the theoretical breakthrough that made interdimensional tunneling possible. The first successful test, opening a breach the size of a pinhead between dimensions. The gradual expansion of the program. The funding that poured in when military applications became apparent. I remember the warnings too. Anomalous readings from the other side. Equipment that malfunctioned in inexplicable ways when placed near the breach. Test animals that returned changed. A colleague, Dr. Reyes, who insisted we were moving too fast, pushing too hard, not considering the consequences. I had her removed from the project. God, I had her removed because she was impeding progress. The resonance inverter was my design originally. A theoretical failsafe I insisted on building into the project, though I never thought we'd need it. It works on a simple principle, if complicated execution. It generates a counter-frequency to the dimensional tiers, essentially stitching reality back together. But to close the primary breach, the source of all this, the device needs to be activated at the exact point of origin. Back at the Threshold chamber, that means going back into the heart of their territory. Maya's been teaching the others how to build smaller versions of the device. Portable resonators that can close minor breaches. The plan is to create a network of them, establish safe zones that can be expanded over time. Reclaim our world piece by piece. There's no guarantee it will work. The technology is theoretical, based on my original designs but adapted with what we've learned since the event. But it's the only chance we have. The Remnant has changed in the time I've been with them. Grown more organized, more purposeful. They're not just surviving anymore. They're fighting back, planning for a future. Small teams venture out daily, mapping safe routes, locating resources, rescuing other survivors. They've even established contact with 2 other groups. One holed up in an old mountain bunker about 100 miles south, another living on boats off the coast. They use modified ham radios like this one, broadcasting on specific frequencies at predetermined times. Tomorrow, a small team of us head back to the facility. One last mission. The primary device is almost complete. I'll be carrying it. My burden, my responsibility. Maya and 4 others will come with me. Security, technical support, and to ensure the mission succeeds, even if I don't make it back. I probably won't be coming back from this one. The activation process is, well, let's just say it's a one-way trip. The device needs to be calibrated to my specific brainwave patterns, the ones that helped create the original breach. A kind of biometric key to ensure precise targeting, and the energy release when the primary breach closes. Anyone in the chamber won't survive it. The others don't know this part yet. Maya suspects, I think, but hasn't said anything. Perhaps she understands that this is my atonement, my chance to make right what I helped make wrong. Before I go, there's something else I need to tell you, whoever you are. Whatever happens tomorrow, whether we succeed or fail, this isn't the end. The world as we knew it is gone, yes, but something else is taking its place. Not just the invasion, the incursion from the other side, but us, humanity, adapting, evolving, finding new ways to exist in this changed reality. I've seen it in the remnant, in how they've transformed from a group of terrified survivors into a community with purpose, in how they look out for each other, teach each other, support each other, in how they're already planning for what comes after we close the breaches, how to rebuild, reconnect, create something new from the ruins of the old. Even in this broken world, humanity survives, adapts, fights back, and after tomorrow, you'll have a fighting chance, a real chance to take back what's yours. Look for the remnant, look for Maya. They'll be expanding their safe zone, broadcasting its coordinates on this frequency at noon every day. Find them, join them, help rebuild. And if you happen to have a radio, keep broadcasting, keep connecting, keep telling your story. That's how we find each other in the darkness. That's how we remember who we are. This is Dr. Alan Walker, formerly of Project Threshold, signing off one last time. The next voice you hear on this frequency won't be mine, but I hope you'll listen to them too. I hope you'll join them in whatever comes next. Stay alive out there, and remember, even in the wasteland, we are not alone. We never were. That was the problem, and now it's the solution. We share this reality with others now, whether we wanted to or not, but it's still ours, still worth fighting for, still worth saving. Goodbye and good luck. This is Walker, signing off.